So I was making a video ranking the Skylanders stories, and I started to think about how each gimmick fit into each game story-wise. This could easily be part of the ranking every Skylanders story video, but I thought I might as well go more in depth here, so then I can give it, I can do this idea justice. I just want to start off by saying I do have a small amount of experience writing. I've studied it, and I have started writing a book over the summer, so I am a little bit qualified to cover this topic. But yeah, the main things I will be looking for in these games are the ways that each game introduces their gimmick, how the gimmick affects the world, this one only applies in a few cases, and lastly, how well the gimmick fits into the story of each of their respective games. Also, I will not be talking about how each game didn't really use the previous game's gimmick. I don't really have a problem with that. That's like a thing that's obvious, it's a gameplay thing, that's all good. Also, I just want to say this video is just for fun. I know these games don't really have a very coherent story, but I'm just going to act as if it is, and I'm going to judge it in that aspect. So, let's get into it with number 6 being Skylanders Imaginators. Now, everyone knows how bad the Skylanders Imaginators story is. What did you really expect to be here? Anyway, sorry. Now, I know it's Imaginators. It does have a good gimmick, which is creating your own Skylanders. It's pretty fun, but I do think it was implemented very poorly. So first off, if the mind magic was always a thing, why did we never use it? Imagine how useful it would be to create some extra Skylanders when Chaos brought his army of minions to destroy the core light in SSA. For the sake of argument, let's just assume that Skylanders only obtained the mind magic book when Skylanders Academy was created in Trap Team. Why wouldn't the Skylanders just use mind magic to defend the core light and Superchargers? Now, that's all I can really say about the mind magic. Let's just get into the senseis. Where were they in any of the other Skylanders games? I would assume that the trainers of the Skylanders would at least get mentioned at some point, even if we never saw them because they were too busy at their job of training the next generation of Skylanders. That's really all I have to say about Imaginators. The story has been killed to death. Let's just get into number 5, being Skylanders Swap Force. Now, I think Swap Force doesn't handle their gimmick too poorly, but I'll get into why I put them here. First off, again, we never heard about the Swap Force before this game, but I guess you could explain this away by saying the Swap Force are in a completely different part of Skylands, which would make sense because they're defending the, Mount Cloudbreak, that's it. They're defending Mount Cloudbreak, and yeah, which, it does make sense because the entire story of Swap Force feels like you aren't in the same place where you were in SSA and Giants, so Swap Force gets a slight pass on that. My main problem with the swapping not really contributing to the story. Gameplay-wise, the gimmick was good, and there was always things for swappers to do, the swap types, you have those, kind of like elemental gates, also the dual elemental gates, those are things that they can do, but story-wise, what do they do? Why do they swap? What point does it have to the story? Seriously, someone please try to explain to me in the comments below why they would swap from a story aspect. I know it's mostly a gameplay thing, Skylanders is a game, it's not like a book or a movie, but why would they swap? Doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, coming in at number 4 is Superchargers. I'm not a huge fan of the Gimmicks gameplay, I'm not a huge fan of the vehicles, not really a huge racing game guy, but at least it tried to be part of the story. A big problem with Superchargers, in my opinion, is the story is that a lot of it makes more sense if you read a comic called Rift into Overdrive. It's really good, I really recommend it, and it's really important if you want to kind of get why are all the NPCs locked away in jail, why are you not in Skylands anymore, it's all that kind of stuff. It's really good. I was actually lucky enough to read it before I played Superchargers. I'll talk about it one day on the channel, probably one day soon. Anyway, so in the book, they kind of do explain where the vehicles and the Rift engines came from. So firstly with the vehicles, this part is a bit weaker because it kind of came out of nowhere. The Skylanders are in trouble, and suddenly Spitfire, Dive-Clops, and Stormblade swoop in to save the day. They aren't even Skylanders yet at this point, but yeah, they saved them anyway. Anyways, they go with the Skylanders to find the Rift engines, which ends up supercharging the Skylanders to give them a fighting chance against the Chaos Jody fighting Superchargers, because earlier in the comic, the Skylanders were getting destroyed by the Dro, like, just annihilated. Not, like, obviously not killed, it's a kid's franchise, but they're, like, getting beaten in every fight they take against them. Now, the Skylanders get overdrive, or they get, like, supercharged, and they're more powerful, they have their new abilities and stuff. So that kind of makes sense, and one really cool thing about that, in my opinion, is that is why they stand on the engines, because that is their Rift engine, and that's what gives them their supercharged abilities. That's just a cool little thing that I thought they did there. But anyway, other than that, I mean, the way to kind of explain away why we never heard about the Rift engines before is because they came from a time before portals. They were what was used instead of portals, so that makes sense. They were kind of forgotten about, but yeah, other than that, I think the gimmick was decently handled in the story. I thought it was pretty good. And yeah, let's get into number 3. And at number 3, I have Trap Team. Trap Team starts by explaining the Trap Team and the Doom Raiders, which is all well and good. But then it tells us why we never could use traps before Trap Team, which I really like. Basically, they weren't a thing, but when Chaos destroyed the Cloudcracker prison, the extra Traptanium, formed into traps that were sent to our world along with Trap Masters. Throughout the game, we use traps to trap enemies, and I think that the traps are very well implemented in the story. For the Trap Masters, it makes sense why we never saw them before, because they were guarding Cloudcracker Prison, and they only stopped when it got destroyed and they got blown to Earth. Now, I think this is well implemented. I don't really have any problems here. Maybe like, oh, we didn't hear about the Doom Raiders before. They were a big threat that wasn't Chaos, and they got defeated by the Doom Raiders. But then I'm pretty sure, I'm not certain about this, I haven't played Trap Team in a while, because I only have the Wii version, and yeah, that's all I need to say about it. But anyway, I'm pretty sure at the start of the game they do say that the Doom Raiders took over a different area of Skylands, so again, maybe we wouldn't have heard about it. It's a completely different area of Skylands, and then now in Trap Team they're trying to take over the main area of Skylands. But anyway, not really a huge problem with that. Now let's move on to number 2, where we have Giants. I know you may know that Giants is my favorite game. I don't rank everything at the top for Giants, but anyway, number 2, Giants. In Giants, it explains to you right away that the time of the Giants is long since passed, and they have only just returned from their banishment. I also love how this game is basically a rematch between the Archeans and the Giants, and I think that element of the story really fits into the theme of Giants being one big adventure, which I will talk more about in my Ranking the Stories video. Another thing that Giants does really well is let them do what would be impossible for a regular Skylander. It gives you gameplay features, it makes sense for the story, that they can pick up boulders, they throw them at enemies, which would be way too heavy for, say, Spyro to pick up. They bash through walls that a normal Skylander would need to use a bomb for. They jump through the ground that, yeah, it's just normal ground to a Skylander. It's very good, I like it very much. And yeah, that's number 2. If you've been paying attention, you know that number 1 is SSA. The gimmick in SSA is the Skylanders, and this game makes you feel like they were always a thing before you came along. It makes the world feel lived in. Whenever you travel to a new place, the NPCs are always like, wow, it's a Skylander coming to save us. And it really does feel like the Skylanders are really important in this world. I'm not really an MCU fan. I think that it kind of fell off after Endgame, but one example that I'll use here is the Avengers, where, there's celebrities in their world. It kind of feels like the same thing for Skylanders. They just feel like a natural part of this universe, and that's really what makes their inclusion feel so right. Now, that's it for my list, guys. This video took really long time to make. It was over 1,000 words. So please consider dropping a like, and if you did make it to the end, then you probably did enjoy the video, so please consider subscribing and supporting a very small channel. I'm really trying to make a lot more high quality content, so stay tuned for whatever comes next, and I'll hope to see you in the next one.